Okay, let's get right into it. When you hear AI governance, you might picture some kind of one-time approval stamp, a checklist you go through, and then you're done. But that's not how it works, not even close. Real AI governance is a living, breathing process. It has to follow an AI system from the very beginning. I mean, from the moment it's just a spark of an idea, all the way through to the day it gets retired. And that's exactly what we're going to break down today.
To really get why this is so critical, you first have to understand one massive difference. Think about traditional software. It's pretty static, right? You write the code, it follows a fixed set of rules, and its behavior is totally predictable. It does what it's told. But AI? AI is a whole different beast. It's dynamic, it learns, it changes based on new data, its performance can drift, and yep, it can absolutely get worse over time. This dynamic nature is its superpower, for sure, but it's also its biggest risk.
And that right there creates a huge problem for the old way of doing things. I mean, if the system itself is always changing, then how can our way of governing it be a one-and-done deal? It can't. A single approval at the very beginning of a project, that becomes obsolete and honestly pretty dangerous the second that AI model starts learning from the real world.
So that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? How in the world do you manage a system that is designed to be in a constant state of change? How do you keep it safe, effective, and fair for everyone it impacts? Well, the answer is actually a pretty simple but really powerful framework, the 4 stages of the AI lifecycle. It all starts with the plan. From there, we move to either build or buy. Then we deploy it. And finally, and this part is key, we enter this continuous loop of monitor and improve. This is our roadmap for the rest of this explainer, and trust me, each stage has its own unique challenges and governance rules. So let's kick things off with stage 1, the plan. And here's the kicker. Good governance starts long before a single line of code is written or a model is even conceived. Some of the most important decisions you'll ever make happen right here at the very beginning. During this planning stage, you have got to ask the tough questions. Like, what problem are we actually trying to solve here? And do we even need AI for this, or is there a simpler way? What kind of data is involved, and do we have the right to use it? Then you have to put on your risk management hat. What's the worst that could happen? And maybe the most important question of all, who is ultimately on the hook if things go wrong? And let's be clear, answering these questions isn't just about ticking boxes on a form. Getting this stage right is what separates a successful project from a catastrophic failure down the road. A solid plan is everything. All right, on to stage 2, build or buy. This is where you actually create the AI system or, purchase it from a vendor. And don't be fooled, this is often the single highest risk stage in the entire lifecycle. This is where people get excited and take shortcuts, and it's where the seeds of most major AI failures are sown. Now, what's so interesting here is how your governance job totally changes depending on which path you take. If you're building the AI in-house, you own everything. We're talking deep data quality checks, serious bias testing, creating solid documentation, the whole shebang. But if you buy a solution, your job shifts. It becomes all about due diligence. You have to demand transparency from the vendor, kick the tires on their security, and get actual proof that they're compliant. Both paths demand a ton of scrutiny. Okay, so you've planned it all out, you've either built or bought your system. Now comes stage 3, deploy. This is the moment of truth. This is where your AI leaves the nice, clean, controlled environment of the lab and gets thrown into the messy, chaotic, real world. So before you push that big green go button, there's a final governance checklist. Has this thing been tested to death in an environment that looks just like the real world? Have we actually addressed the risks we talked about back in the planning stage? Is there a human in the loop, someone who can step in and override the AI's decisions? And are the monitoring tools ready to go from the very first second? This is your last chance to say go or no go. And this is a huge mindset shift you have to make. Deployment is not the finish line. It's the starting gun. The moment an AI goes live is the moment its real-world risk truly begins, and your job switches from building it to managing it. Which brings us perfectly to the 4th and never-ending stage, monitor and improve. Because AI systems are dynamic, they absolutely require continuous oversight. You can't just set it and forget it. That, my friends, is a recipe for disaster. And this timeline shows you exactly why. There's this concept called model drift. When you first launch your AI, it's at its best, peak performance. But the world changes, right? It sees new data it wasn't trained on, and its performance starts to slip. It's inevitable.
After just 3 months, you might see some minor issues. By 6 months, you're probably getting performance alerts. And if you ignore those, you could have a system making costly or even harmful mistakes that demand an urgent fix.
So what does this monitoring actually look like? Well, it's a whole bunch of ongoing activities. It means you're constantly tracking its performance. You're actively looking for that drift we just talked about. You're retesting for new biases that might have crept in. You're monitoring for security threats, and you have a clear plan for reporting incidents and doing regular reviews. It's an active, always-on job. So when you pull all 4 of these stages together, you stop thinking about them as separate tasks. You start to see them as a single, unified system, a system that's predictable, repeatable, and most importantly, based on actual evidence every single step of the way. So here's what those key checkpoints look like as a full system. It starts with that initial use case approval. Then comes a formal risk assessment. After that, rigorous testing and validation. Fourth, that final deployment approval. Fifth, the crucial ongoing monitoring we just discussed. And sixth, periodic reviews to make sure the AI is still doing what it's supposed to. That's it. That's your continuous loop of safety and accountability. So, if you only take one single thing away from this explainer, please let it be this. It's a simple equation, but it's everything. Because AI changes, your governance must be continuous. The two are completely linked. One can't exist without the other. And that leaves us with one final question for you to take back to your team. Looking at your own projects, is your governance really, truly ready for the entire AI lifecycle?